So this is Melissa. Melissa is the person who actually manages all the apprentices and grads across the whole of Manchester Airport Group. I'm talking Manchester, Stansted, East Midlands, every single part of the patch. Whether they're an apprentice or a graduate, Melissa will be the person who actually hires them. So if you're watching this and you want to get an apprenticeship or a graduate scheme at Manchester Airport Group, Melissa is the person who'll be able to give you the job. Yeah, exactly. So Melissa, if you're watching this and you really want to get an apprenticeship or a graduate program at Manchester Airport Group, what should you know?
I think a real key thing is to understand that the airport has got a lot of different opportunities. So a lot of young people I speak to think about airports and think about pilots and cabin crew and don't really think about the other opportunities available. Researching what can happen at the airport utilising our social media pages, or our website's got a really good overview in there about all the opportunities in engineering and data and project management. There's so much scope that I think just researching what the opportunities are is the first step, and then reaching out on social media to ask more information is always a good way of getting a bit more of an insight into what careers there can be and whether apprenticeships or graduate roles are available in those careers.
Nice. And what would be the first step for somebody who really wants to get an apprenticeship or a graduate program at the airport at MAG?
So we advertise at certain times of the year. Outside of those times, I think Rate My Apprenticeship's a really good site and one that I recommend to every young person to be part of. On there you can see reviews from real life apprentices from the airports about the schemes they're on, the providers they're working with, the support they've had from us as a business. And that's like from the horse's mouth. That's from actual apprentices telling you what it's like. So it's not me saying it's brilliant, it's them sort of giving you that insight. That's really good. Our social media channels will always have the first port of call in terms of where we put our adverts out. That's a really good one to find out a bit more about the business. LinkedIn's will be the better one in terms of understanding the culture, what we're kind of doing from a transformation point of view, all the good projects that are happening and things as well. And then we partner with Unifrog and Not Going to Uni. There are two partner career sites, and there's some really great videos on those sites, again showcasing apprentices and grads that have already got roles at the airport and can give you a bit more insight into that as well.
And what sort of skills and qualities are you looking for personally when you're actually looking at people who've applied? What makes people stand out in terms of their skills, qualities, their attitudes, etc.?
Yeah, it's really difficult when you start in your career because you've got no prior experience or very little work experience. You might have had an internship if you're lucky, or done a couple of days here and there, but you have to kind of rely on more your experience from education, from social settings. It might be you're part of a sports group, for example, also maybe part-time work experience you've done. I think the two key skills at the moment we're looking for are resilience and adaptability. The airport is changing, all of the airports changing rapidly. We've got big expansion plans, transformation plans, and if you can't show that you can adapt to change and be resilient in that can be quite tricky. And then students say, well, how do I show that? How do I show you that I've got resilience or adaptability? They're just kind of buzzwords at the moment. A lot of these students lived through COVID. Like, they went to school in a very, very different time in terms of how they were learning and how they were kind of being taught. And I think that's a really great example of adapting to a new situation, showing resilience and getting their GCSEs or their A-levels during a time when the whole world was in sort of a flux and not understanding how we were going to get through it. So there's definitely, they'll have examples of that from their own personal lives. It hasn't got to be work related. It can be related to any part of their life. But yeah, I think the COVID example is a really good one that we see coming through quite a lot, and it does show that resilience and adaptability.
Fantastic. And I like that. So being resilient, being adaptable, and especially when you look at across the whole of all the airports at Manchester Airport Group, they're all going through their own bit of a journey, right?
Definitely.
They're all going through their journeys.
Yeah.
If you're watching this and you have no idea what an apprenticeship or a graduate scheme at the airport could look like, could you give us a flavour of the breadth?
Yeah, so there's some really hands-on vocational stuff. So engineering is a really key one. Firefighter is one that we've got a lot of opportunity in. That is an ageing workforce. We want to bring new talent into that. So actually, if you think about firefighting, you probably think about local authority. Airports have got firefighters too. And then you've got, to the other end of the scale, we've got degree apprenticeships in things like cybersecurity, data, project management, quantity surveying, and then all sorts of stuff in between. So we've got corporate social responsibility responsibility, which is a really key one coming through from a sustainable angle. Obviously, aviation is looked at quite strongly in terms of what we're doing to make the better choices from a green perspective, and yeah, the CSR apprenticeship's a really key one for us in kind of developing people with that knowledge to then go back out into, I don't know, finance, HR, but with a sustainable angle on it as well. So yeah, there's a real scope of some really kind of hands-on experienced roles that you would need, I suppose, that technical knowledge to know, and then other things is just more upskilling people to have the knowledge for the future roles that we've got as well.
And what advice would you give somebody who's approaching an interview for an apprenticeship or a graduate program? What could they do to prepare?
There's lots of things you can do to prepare. I think the key thing for most people is to understand the role they're applying for. So it's quite easy as an apprentice or a grad or someone coming into the industry to kind of scattergun approach what they apply for and not be considered in their applications in terms of this is the role that I'm going for this particular reason. So researching the business and researching the department and the role that you're going into is really key. And I don't just mean reading the advert, I mean actually looking on LinkedIn, who does that job now, what background have they got, what are they doing day to day, because actually if you can bring that into the interview and kind of give a little bit of a real life twist to it, then that's going to kind of stand you out from someone that just kind of reads from the job spec, oh I think I'll be doing X, Y, Z. If you come in and go, actually I think I'll be doing this because I saw so and so on LinkedIn was involved in that project this week, it just shows a little bit more interest in that from that perspective. The lack of experience, I think a lot of people get hung up on and they worry about the fact they haven't got actual experience in this industry, and actually it's not about the experience you can bring to it, it's about the knowledge and the passion for the industry. The experience and then everything else will come later. At this stage it is more about actually why you want to work in aviation, what that gives you, rather than going to be a finance grad in one of the big four, for example, or going to be a HR grad for a HR firm. What does the aviation side of it give you that kind of stands out? And they're the people that we see who are more likely to be successful at interview, because they can link not just the job role but back to the airport operation as well.
And the chances are, if you're actually watching this video, then you're one of those people who's doing that digging to actually find this out. So welcome. The stuff that you're learning in this video about what it means to be an apprentice at MAG is part of what you really want to be able to bring to life in the interview, and mention that you've watched this video and that you've done this research and that you've been on that journey. Now, once you get your foot in the door into Manchester Airport Group, then what does it look like in terms of upskilling, training, and in terms of career progression? Could you shed some light on what it actually looks like once you get your foot in the door? Yeah,
so I think from the apprenticeship and a grad option, they do kind of diverge a little bit in the sense that they have different end routes, but ultimately they are programs. So they are either anything from 2 years to 4 years on apprenticeship, and a 3-year program if you're a grad, and you will get on-the-job support, so you will be given on-the-job training in terms of technical things that you need to know to do that role, and then you'll also be given a mentor or a buddy, and we do try and get that to be somebody who's been through a program before, so they can give you some real life experience of, actually, I was in your shoes 12, 18, 3 years ago, whatever it might be. And then we will also have a programme of additional learning that you can do. So that might be in relation to masterclasses, in relation to events like we've had today, where you've kind of come and spoken to the team and the group to understand a bit more about what the opportunities are. And then if you're on the apprenticeship angle, you will have your training provider who is giving you all your skills and knowledge, behaviours to do well at the role. That's all the theoretical knowledge, and then you come back into the airport and you put that into practice from a practical perspective. So, but from all of our schemes, I think it's a really good opportunity to rotate around. Most of our roles offer that rotation, and you can rotate between different parts of the airport, understand different parts of the operation, ultimately to get a role at the end of it. So you're always working towards what that end role is. And the idea between about the programs is that you experience enough to make that informed decision. So if you only came in and did one role, then you might be kind of boxed into what that one role is. Whereas with the rotation, you can experience 5, 6, 7 different teams, and at the end of it start to think about, okay, I see my career going in this direction, I'll start to kind of apply for end positions in these different areas. So,
What advice would you give somebody who's on a rotational program? How do they make the most out of it?
I think it's really understanding kind of each different rotation, why you're there. So I think it can be quite easy as a grad or an apprentice to kind of go in and you are seen as, it's difficult for the team sometimes to adapt to having somebody if they've not had someone before. So you going in and kind of stating your claim, I am here because I need to learn X, Y, Z, or my objectives for this 6 months are this.
Nice.
And that kind of, you can kind of own it yourself then rather than relying on the team to sort of think, oh, what are we going to do with this person, which can sometimes happen.
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's not just kind of being contained to what that rotation is. So it might be you're rotated into airfield ops, for example, but actually during that rotation you realise that there's the baggage handlers, there's the ground handling staff, there's other opportunities that are there, and just trying to ask as many questions as possible, maybe go and shadow those teams a little bit, like really don't just do what you're expected to, maybe kind of do a little bit outside of that in each rotation, so that your 7 rotations then comes more like 10 or 11 or 12 because you've actually experienced so much. And ultimately my role is that every person that comes through one of these programs gets a role at the end of it.
Nice.
A lot of the schemes that we've got are because we've got skill gaps or skill shortages, which the aviation industry has anyway. So actually we are building you to be most well-rounded people possible so that they are more likely to get those roles at the end of it as well. So even if in your rotation you haven't officially been as part of a team that you're interested in, through asking questions, shadowing, you have the opportunity to go for those roles as well.
Nice. So just like it's such a perfect way to get your foot in the door,
It really
and then
is, yeah.
taste all the various different things that you could be doing, because and also get the freedom to not just experience the things that are technically on the menu, but shape what that can look like as well. Because I mean, we were talking about this earlier with the rest of the team, is ultimately this 3 years or 2 years or however long the program is your opportunity to develop yourself and to grow and to learn and to understand this place. It's such a complex place.
Yeah.
And the better you understand it, the better the decisions you make. The better decisions you make, the sort of the more valuable you are to the company.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
and the more and just more well-rounded as an individual you are
as
as well.
individuals, and the more options you have at the end of it, it's not just 1 or 2 roles you can apply for, it could be 5 or 6, because actually you've got all this different experience and all this different knowledge that you can bring to it.
Nice. One more question, or maybe 2 more questions. What are the typical interview questions that show up in an apprenticeship or a graduate interview?
They're very similar in both apprenticeship and graduate interviews, and it's because we know that the people that are going for those interviews haven't got experience. So we tend to have a question related to each of our 5 values. So, and our values are out there for everyone to have a look at, so you can go on the website, they'll be on social media, like if you want to find them, they're very easy to find. So having an example that kind of links back to each of those values, they might be worded slightly differently in the question, but there's going to be one around teamwork, there's one around kind of working to deadlines, setting goals. So it kind of, you can work out, I think, quite easily what those questions might be. And then there's normally, for the apprenticeship scheme specifically, why an apprenticeship? So really calling out why an apprenticeship route over going to university or over another way in. And I think that's really key, because we want to make sure that the apprentice or the potential apprentice understands what that scheme's going to give them above and beyond what a normal role would. So that's quite a key one. But a lot of it, and I've mentioned it before, it's not about your experience, it's about your attitude, it's about your passion for the role, it's about understanding what the role is and what the business is about. If you can get all that across in the interview through some of the examples that you give, then you'll be onto a winner.
Amazing. Just like that. I mean, that's pretty much everything you need. You know, if you're watching this video and you're thinking to yourself, wow, this is a gem, like, you know, don't gatekeep, share it with people. Let me know in the comments if this is valuable, because I've applied to graduate programs. You don't usually find this sort of in-depth insight into it. But the reason, I guess, why you're sharing it is because if you've made the effort to come this far, to research and to watch this video and to learn about what this apprenticeship program is all about, you're clearly already invested, you're clearly interested. So why not give them the keys to the castle?
Exactly.
There you go.
No one's gatekeeping here.
No one's gatekeeping here. This is for you. So let me know in the comments what else you want to know. If you have any more questions, let us know. And we'll make it happen. We'll make it answer it. Thanks so much, Melissa.
You're welcome. Thank
It's been
you.
a pleasure.